Farage, you're all very welcome as always. You're all very welcome, with a special shout out to my little band of Patreon followers who keep this nonsense going. And if you would like to join them and can afford just a fiver a month, that would be greatly appreciated. Now, if you can't afford that, no problem. You are still more than welcome. Glad to have you along. I indeed. Now, there's only one big story this week. And no, it isn't the funeral of a pope. No, we talk about that later on. No, believe it or not, the funeral of a pope comes second place to rap band Kneecap, who appear to have kneecapped themselves. To begin with, I'm pretty certain that what I'm about to say will annoy both Kneecap fans and detractors in equal measure. This is because we live in a society where it's binary, where if you're not 100% on either side, then you're against. As they've been on a loop both local, national, and international news stations, you've no doubt already seen the clips of the Kneecap members shouting, "The only good Tory is a dead Tory," and "Kill your MP," with another outburst where "Up Hamas, up Hezbollah," screamed from the stage. Indeed, the word Kneecap has appeared so often in the news, I'm beginning to feel like I'm back in the 70s and 80s. Now, I am not a Kneecap fan. This will surprise nobody. As being a man of 64, I don't exactly fall within their desired demographic. Being a child of the 60s, my ambient soundtrack is Simon and Garfunkel, or maybe even Neil Diamond. Yes, hey, I hold my hands up. I am a closet, easy listening fan. No doubt that humiliating admission will now knock the whole Kneecap debacle off the front pages. But aside from their music, which other younger, more discerning people have assured me is very, very good indeed, I found their use of balaclavas, burning police murals, and general uber republicanism a tad tiresome. I'm sorry, it's a tad tiresome. For these three young fellas have had the great good fortune to have been born into peace, or whatever passes for peace in these parts. Myself and my generation, however, we spent the majority of our lives trapped in the conflict. For us, there's no glamour in burning jeeps or bullets nor bombs, for we've seen personal experience their outcome. And I do understand that our divided society was unlikely to ever throw up a rap band singing Kumbaya, but I'd have hoped at least it would have spawned one able to reach out from its own tribe across the sectarian divide. Like as a boy, I remember sitting in St. Patrick's Chapel on Donegal Street, our parish chapel, as the priest struggled to make himself heard over the concussive beat of orange bands standing at the front door of the church. These musicians, of course, were known as Kick the Pope bands. Kneecap should worry that they're on the cusp of being seen as a Kick the Prod band. Now, it has been both unedifying yet hilarious to watch the swathe of nationalist commentators engage in verbal gymnastics and ethical acrobatics in their attempts to excuse or justify the band's outbursts. Rationalization's going on. I've been breathtaking. Now, and I thought rationalization, I thought we'd get in here. This is an explanation. Rationalization is a common defense mechanism that people use to protect their self-image and avoid feelings of guilt or shame. Ring any bells? How it works: instead of acknowledging bad behaviour, the person or people create an explanation that makes it seem less problematic or even justifiable. Look over there. Examples. Look over there. Look at that. We're bad, but look over there. Now, the underlying reasons, right? Rationalization can stem from various factors, including a desire to avoid responsibility, maintain a positive self-image, or protect oneself from criticism. Ding, 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 ding. And how you distinguish it from genuine justification? It's important to note that rationalization differs from genuine justification, which involves a sincere explanation of the reasons behind a behaviour and an acknowledgement of its potential consequences. I believe that Kneecap's statements on stage were both crass and stupid. But, and there is a but, I do not believe that they were intentionally either a hate crime nor incitement to violence. I come at this from a somewhat unique position, as I have been working as a stand-up comic here for over 30 years dealing with politics and current affairs. Now, during that time, I genuinely cannot count the number of occasions where in the heat of a performance I have said something I subsequently regretted. Thank God nobody was filming it. And I am not alone in this. I recently watched an interview with comic Jimmy Carr, one of the most successful stand-up comics in the UK, known as someone who also pushes the envelope in his live shows. Now, the interviewer asked him if he was worried that he could end up being cancelled for something he said. He gave a very surprising answer. He said he was sure he would be cancelled, but not for something he said, but for something he'd already said, which was yet to be discovered and shared with the world. Performers who venture into the realms of politics or current affairs now face a McCarthy-esque risk of being blackbooked, or what today is called cancelled. Just to put this in context, I would like to offer up a mea culpa, right? By showing a short segment from my tour last year where I commented on the attempted assassination of presidential candidate Donald Trump. Now, warning, strong language, warning. Here we go. Most famous comb over the day has to be the Donald. He's got 3 comb overs. There's 1, there's 2, there's fucking all sorts of stuff going on there. The other enemy of comb overs isn't just the sweat, it's the wind. The wind hits a comb over. It's not good, not good. But I am convinced that that's one of the reasons Donald survived. I think that bullet ricocheted off his comb over and nicked his wee ear. Here's my problem with that, right? In a country where statistically there are more guns than people, they couldn't find one fucker who could shoot straight. I could go down New Lodge tonight and find 5. I'm only saying. It's a conundrum for me, you know. First off, it's interesting that a lot of my friends say I should never have shown that because I now risk being banned from the US, the land of the free and the home of the brave. Isn't that strange? And that clip, see that clip? First of all, a lot of people think it's bad taste. Fair enough. That's fair enough. But there's 2 ways to view it, right? The first is the way I intended it, which was as a comedic way to deal with the madness of gun ownership in the USA. But you could also argue that what I said indicated that I was disappointed that the shooter hadn't been successful in attacking Trump. Now, I can put my hand on my heart and say the second was never my intention. But it could be taken out of context and seen in that way. This is part of a much longer segment where I commented on Trump's campaign and hairstyle, but I chose not to show that to illustrate how easy it is to frame a comment in 2 diametrically different ways. Now, as for Kneecap offering a fulsome apology, bullshit. But I can see why they did what they did. Let's be honest about this. For their fans, no apology was necessary, and for their detractors, no apology would ever have sufficed. And so the game will play out. Having already had a number of their gigs cancelled, I wouldn't be surprised if their Glastonbury gig soon is added to that list. Worse is the certainty that in Trump's America, they will now face a visa ban. All this before any crime has been identified or legal sanction imposed. This is testament to a cold winter for any performer who dares to question the status quo regarding the ongoing genocide being perpetrated in Palestine. As I said at the outset, my comments will please neither friend nor foe of the band, but I hope at least it will be seen as a measured response to what has become a media frenzy. Let me end with this. While I'm not a fan of rap, I am old enough to remember how it began in the US, with black rappers continually denounced for their incendiary lyrics, especially regarding the American police. And that tradition continues right up until today, with a rapper called Calvin Codazar Broadars Jr. Can't pronounce that right. Well, he recently penned these lyrics. Now, this is a very, very strong language warning. Do you understand here? Take no responsibility for this. Some of this shit makes me blush. Here we go. All you N-word out there, take your guns that you using to shoot each other and start shooting these bitch-ass motherfucking police. That'll impress a M-fucking N-word like me, the crooked M-fuckers, cause these police getting way too M-fucking out of line. That's my song, still available on Apple Music. Penned by J5 Slap and the rapper called Calvin Cordazar Broadas Jr., thankfully, who is now better known to the world as Snoop Dogg. And yes, there were calls by numerous police forces across America for the cancellation of Snoop Dogg's appearance at the Super Bowl, but it went ahead. So maybe, just maybe, Kneecap have a future. And if they do, I'd implore them, lads, lose the balaclava and at least try to reach out, not just to the tribe into which you just happen to be born, but across the divide. Because doing what you're doing is the easy and lazier option. And if you continue in this fashion, you may remain on the right side of history, but you'll end up being nothing more than a historical footnote. A pensioner was left traumatized after a bunch of inbred morons decided it would be fun to topple his vehicle over during a car event in Port Rush on Easter Sunday. Here are the brave boys themselves. And what I hear you say is a name for the collective name for a bunch of men turning over a car. Well, of course, it's virgins. Virgins, that's what they are. The good news is that with that video, the geniuses involved will no doubt be easy to identify for the PSNI. And I hope they're quickly brought to justice and that someday they're able to save enough money to pay some woman to have sex with them. They need it badly. Our car, I don't want my car overturned. You know, you don't want them running about society. You understand? That's what I'm saying. If you happen to look out your window last week to see the strange sight of a neighbour kneeling in front of their car number plate, don't worry. They weren't praying to the god of the combustion engine. No. Instead, they were more likely taking part in what has become known as the Bug Splat Survey, which asks members of the public to help identify the population or living population of flying insects. Now, the idea is simple enough. You take a drive into the country having registered your route, and when you get home, you count the number of dead, splattered insects on your number plate. And this has thrown up some horrible stats. Between 2021 and 2024, a sharp decline was seen across the UK, with a drop of 55% of insects in Northern Ireland. Oh, tough here. Now, ecologists have concluded the decline is due to a combination of global warming, habitat loss and damage, pollution, pesticide use, and what they termed human activities. Could I suggest that possibly one of those human activities could be convoys of cars travelling into the countryside, killing millions of insects for the survey? Maybe here's another idea. Could it possibly be that our wee flying insects have finally recognised the dangers of oncoming cars and evolved? And now when they see them hurtling towards them, instead of going straight, they fly out of the way. They fly out of the way. A bit like insect bullfighting. Go on, you wanker. Could be. Who knows? The world awoke on Easter Monday to the sad news that Pope Francis had died. Naturally, the story led in the Irish news, whilst in the newsletter it was consigned to page 56 in a paper of 54 pages. I'm only messing, but I bet you it wasn't the front page. Anyway, could have been, but I'm not sure. Anyway, Pope Francis went out in style, having appeared in St. Peter's Square the previous day to celebrate Easter Sunday. Some have suggested that it wasn't a coincidence that the Holy Father gave up the ghost only a matter of hours following a meeting with US Vice President J.D. Vance and his wife. It's only conjecture, who knows? Now, I have to say, I like this Pope. I like Pope Frankie. I like Frankie. From the moment the white smoke came up, he let everybody know that and understand that the Catholic Church was under new management. An example was that before he went out onto the balcony to wave to the thousands of well-wishers in St. Peter's Square having been elected, right? They offered him the papal robes, very, very ornate papal robes, but he said no. He refused. And his reply was, the pantomime is over. Isn't that great? Instead, he just wore a simple white cassock, which he wore through his whole papacy. Because one of the measures, indeed, of many Catholics' lives is how many popes we have lived through. In my case, the new pope will be my 6th. I think or 7th. 1 or 2, anyway. Because I've lived through Pope Paul, Pope John Paul, Pope John Paul II, Pope Benedict, and Pope Francis, and then who's going to come next? Frankie was a humble man who highlighted rampant consumerism and capitalism as the core of much of the world's injustice. And following his election, he refused to use the papal car to go back to the Vatican. Instead, he decided to travel back to the hotel in the bus used by the other cardinals. Indeed, he never used the papal car, travelling in a Fiat Uno, would you believe? No doubt causing great worry for his security team. Indeed, he appeared to have tamed the Vatican Curia. Now, the Vatican Curia it's like a Vatican civil service, right? They're a little army unto themselves. And many have blamed them for ending the pontificate of his predecessor, Pope Benedict. So many things done. We now sit, our 133 cardinals will now sit under Michelangelo's masterpiece in the Sistine Chapel to elect a new pontiff. There have been rumours that the new pope could well be from either Africa or Asia, with the only certainty being he'll definitely be male. And with a global population, Catholic population estimated at 1.4 billion, or 17.7% of the world's population, whoever sits in the chair of St. Peter is of importance. Now, you wouldn't know that if you'd been watching President Donald Trump's social media feed where he put this up. You couldn't make this up. You couldn't make that up. That man's not right. That man's not right. Now, the number of Catholics, maybe 17.7% population, but the number of Catholics, it may be steadily increasing. In the third world, it has been decimated in recent decades in both Europe and in North America, in no small measure due to the fallout around the paedophile priest scandal. Now, a couple of weeks ago, it was actually a month ago, I came across a clip online which for me exemplifies much of what is wrong with a section of today's church. And I was going to show this clip, I'd say about a month ago, but then Pope Francis took ill and I thought that would be in bad taste, so I waited. Okay, so sit back and watch me comment on what this online priest has to say. I came across a priest online. Not deliberately. It just popped up. Only social media, these just pops up. I think he's a priest. There's a strange thing is he doesn't give his name, though I suspect he probably is a priest, sadly. You know what I mean? And he has a lot to say. He's a lot, this wee man, sitting on his seat, has a lot to say about the state of today's Catholics. Now, I have to give a warning here before I play this bit of a video, right? Please don't watch this if you happen to be eating or drinking, as you'll either choke or spit out the contents of your mouth as you let out a stream of expletives. So just keep your mouth clear. And what I want to do here is break down what this pontificating little prick on his velvet chair actually said. I just want to address it just point by point. So let's begin here.
Convinced the synod is going to have the mojo to say it. No disrespect, okay? No disrespect. Sure, it'll be full of lovely people. Lovely people. Lovely little Catholics. Little good little Catholics.
Good little Catholics. Good little Catholics. Move on. Hey! Calm yourself.
Catholics. But I'm just going to say, my ancestors starved rather than changed their faith. That's the stock I come from. I don't know what you come from. Okay? Maybe the same, maybe better. But I don't know. I know where I come from.
Well, they're at least have something in common with him, as I too have ancestors who starved for their faith, but not just for one reason, but two. Firstly, they too refused to give up their faith and take the soup, but they also starved for a second reason, namely that they gave every spare penny they had to a church which placed priggish, pontificating pricks onto velvet chairs where they castigated those who were putting food in their mouths for not being good enough Catholics. If you doubt me about this, then ask yourselves this one question, because I've asked this many times. Why is it when you drive through any Catholic village, the biggest house in the village is always the parochial house? Why? Why does one man living by himself need a house with 8 or 9 rooms? Or at least we thought they were living by themselves. Enough. We'll move on anyway.
And I'm sorry to talk to you like this, particularly as a priest, but I don't know how much longer I'm going to be putting up with your bullshit.
But as you may not know it, priest with no name, Ireland has long since stopped buying into your version of arrogant bullshit. You obviously have been the bubble, son. You've been the bubble. This has passed you by, but we're not putting up with it anymore.
Sorry. I'm sure you're a lovely person, but you don't seem to be able to sort your stuff out. And I haven't had those excuses made for me in my life. I had to sort my crap out. I left the seminary because I wasn't sure I had a vocation. I went back even though I was starting to settle into a perfectly rewarding job because the vocation still haunted me. I've been a priest.
Interesting. That's an interesting one. The vocation still haunted me. The vocation still haunted. That's interesting. Funny thing is, I've never read the story of any notable cleric nor saint who was haunted by their vocation. Indeed, if you read the lives of the mystics, they were in ecstasy because of their vocation. So I suspect you're not as sordid as you profess to be. And you probably should have stayed in your perfectly rewarding job, which I'm making a guess was as a traffic warden. Or maybe top range junior clerk, because your level of IQ, you wouldn't have gone any further than that.
I've been a priest through the worst times in the church for quite a long time, really bad times. And I'm in no mood for your endless cowardice before the choices of life.
We're the cards. Hang on a second here, son. We're the cards. You were there. What caused the worst years for the church? Sure as hell wasn't us, the laity. It was you, the priests, the pervert pedophiles who were shunted from parish to parish. And what did you say about that, little priest? Because you said you were there. Oh, I'm sure if I go online, I can find video of you standing denouncing those evil clerics.
Choices of life. And so I'm saying to you now, I don't care if you were brought up a Catholic. I don't care if your granny said the rosary. You listen to me. I care what you think. I care what you believe. And if you don't believe in God and His Son Jesus Christ and the Holy Catholic Church, which is the body of our Lord Jesus Christ on earth, the whole assembly of the believers and its authority to teach. If you don't believe in that, God bless you. God keep you. The door's there. It leads to the road. And you go with my blessing. Not a curse, blessing. And my prayers. And my respect. Think about that last one. You had the last one? My respect, because you're not getting it where you are now, sitting in a seat in the Catholic Church, attending a ceremony you don't understand, not even showing the manners or respect that might be expected of a civilized atheist, not knowing what you're at.
No, you silly little man. You don't show us the door. We've shown the likes of you the door. Manners, respect. You earn respect. You'll no longer be given it with your fancy dress and threats of condemnation. You may dream of the halcyon days when you were able to call people out from the pulpit. Well, them days are over. Now it's we who call you out. For I'm telling you this, do you see, if heaven is full with the likes of you, most of us will happily dance into the gates of hell rather than spend eternity with you. But you know what? I don't think we're going to end up in hell. Even though we're not the sort of Catholics you demand. You know, we're not the whimpering, supine, browbeaten, ignorant fools who once fell for your bullshit. So go scare children elsewhere. For I know your type, as I was educated by yous. First of all by the Christian brothers, and then Rosminian priests in a Catholic boarding school. You don't frighten me, son. I've had you before. But get some balance here. Do you see that sign there? I survived Catholic school. That's what that reads. Do you know who gave me that? A priest. I was given that by a priest. But not one like you. This was a humble, caring man who ministered to me at a pivotal moment in my life, and through his compassion changed my life for the better. For he was a man who lived the gospel rather than preached it. A man who never condemned nor tried to humiliate, but was always encouraging and understanding of the frailties of being a human being. As for you muppet, on your wee red velvet chair, you're a clown. You are nothing but a bad smell lingering from a time thankfully long past. So in your own style, go away. Go away. You'd never get tired slapping that child, sure you wouldn't. You'd never get tired slapping them. But I refuse to end on something so negative. So instead, here's how Pope Francis himself ended a Netflix documentary about his life entitled A Man of His Word, which was a film by German director Wim Wenders. I find this very interesting.
Un artista es un apóstol de la belleza que ayuda a vivir a los demás. Pensemos en todos los artistas que han logrado eso, pero también cada uno de nosotros. Y si usted me pregunta, bueno, pero deme un ejemplo de belleza simple, cotidiano, que podamos tener para ayudar a los demás a que sean mejor, a que sean más felices, me vienen a la mente dos: la sonrisa y el sentido del humor. La sonrisa, la capacidad de sonreír. Sonrisa es la flor del corazón, sobre todo cuando es gratuita, que no está manipulada por intereses seductores, ¿no? La sonrisa fresca, dicen los literatos, y el sentido del humor. Y acá quiero hacer una confesión personal. Todos los días, después de rezar las laudes, rezo la oración de Santo Tomás Moro para pedir el sentido del humor, sense of humor, y que empieza de una manera que hace reír. Dame, Señor, una buena digestión, pero también algo para digerir.
Who knows? Maybe, as a comic, I won't need to bribe St. Peter at the pearly gates after all. No, I still will. Definitely will. This week saw a very interesting round of UK council elections, which has thrown up the horrific possibility that Nigel Farage and his UK Reform Party may be real contenders at the next general election. Now, while damaging Labour, Farage's party decimated the Tories with them. They dropped over 500 seats, which UK Reform picked up. But the surge in Farage's support is in keeping with a general move across Europe to the far right. And it will be interesting to see how both Labour and the Tories alter their attitude to immigration and other issues now that their electoral backs appear to be against the wall. I hope they don't, but I wouldn't be surprised if they do. There was an indication this week in the O'Kane household that my twisted sense of humour may have trickled down one generation. My 17-year-old son asked me who I thought would win in a fight between 100 men and a gorilla. Seemingly this is a very popular thought experiment doing the rounds online. I replied the gorilla, of course. My son agreed with me, but he added that when he's now asked the question, he answers. Hold on, no. It's not going to be a fight. It's not going to be a fight between 100 men and a gorilla. It's going to be a fight between 99 men against me and the gorilla. For there's no way I'm going to be in this man's side. I like that. I thought that was very good. The child made me giggle. He did make me giggle that day. That was very good. Very good. I might use that in tour, actually. So don't say anybody. Don't tell anybody. It's very good. Very good.
You'll do nothing. You hear me? You'll do nothing.